Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teal. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teal, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info. I'm so happy that you could join us this evening. We've got a great show for you today. My name is Marcia Teal, and I am your host every week. And we're talking about caregiving, we're talking about Alzheimer's, we're talking about other kinds of dementia. And on this show, we have experts in the field that are professionals that can help give information that you need as a family, unpaid family caregiver to help make your caregiving a little bit easier, maybe answer some questions, give you some tips, learn, because the more a caregiver learns, the little bit better your day will be. And so I'm so happy that you could join us. This is Tuesday, September 8th, 2015. And this week's show is going to be awesome because, you know, we have professionals on the show, but we also have people just like you, unpaid family caregivers, who come and tell their story. Everybody has a different story. Taking care of a person with Alzheimer's or dementia is not easy, as you know, but it's different for everyone. Every person that has the memory loss is different in the way they behave and the way they talk and the way they think. And every person who's a caregiver for someone with Alzheimer's and dementia also is different in the way that they think and they behave and they react and they feel. So everybody's different, but sometimes it really does help to listen to someone who's walked in your shoes and hear from a wife, hear from a daughter, a son, a husband, a spouse that, you know, is going through what you're going through. The information can be invaluable because you can identify with that person. And although their story is not going to be exactly your story, you're going to identify and say, they're walking in my shoes, and you can support them, you can learn from them, you can sympathize with them, and I think that we all need to connect in this way so that we can help people any way that we can. So we're going to be having this week, a daughter whose mother was diagnosed with moderate stage Alzheimer's disease. Now that's bad enough in itself. But what happened in this situation before mom got diagnosed, that's even worse. So we're going to be talking about how Alzheimer's disease affects a family, how sometimes it can actually destroy families and it can destroy family relationships. And so you won't want to miss that. But before we get to our guests today, we actually have two. The other one's surprise guest. Before we get to our guests, we do a weekly Brain Boosters. Now, the Brain Boosters is a tip that I give every week, something that's going to either help you retain your memory or maybe improve your memory a little bit. So these are little things that we can all do every day to keep our game on, help our brain to either improve or keep what we already have. So today's tip is this. Okay, so we all brush our hair. We want to brush our hair because we want to look good on the outside. But it's something different that we use, a different kind of brush that's going to help us think better on the inside. What is that? A toothbrush. Now you might think that's kind of strange. How can a toothbrush help us think better on the inside, help our brain work? Well, let me tell you why. Because there have been studies done over the last few years where gum disease, right, like a gingivitis, can actually have bacteria that gets into our bloodstream when we brush, when we floss, if we're not careful and we cut our gums. And that bacteria can travel to the brain through the bloodstream and get logged in our brain. And as more of this bacteria kind of accumulates, it can have a negative effect on cognitive functioning. So there was an article that I pulled, and a lot of people, may know this because it's been out for a little while. But, if you're new to caregiving, if you've never heard this, then I think it's worth repeating. There is a bacteria, and I will attempt to pronounce this. It's actually not too bad. It's lipopolysaccharide. And that is a compound found in the gingivitis. And they being the researchers, actually took people that had Alzheimer's disease and took brain tissue samples from them. And what they found, that there were 4 out of 10 patients that had this bacteria in their brain that had Alzheimer's, compared to another sample of people who did not have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. In other words, they had normal, healthy brains, and they did not have any of this bacteria. So what they concluded was there's a link between the oral bacteria that starts in our mouth and can travel to our brain and Alzheimer's disease. So they're not saying that this causes Alzheimer's, because they're still researching to find out what the cause is. But oral bacteria has already been shown to make an impact on other kinds of bodily functions that can create heart disease, even some forms of cancer. Bacteria that enters the bloodstream, especially when someone is doing major oral surgery. You're going to an oral surgeon, and you have a lot of work to be done, and the cavities are opened up, and any infection or any of this gingivitis and this bacteria is going to come out and get into your bloodstream, and that's especially dangerous. And I actually had a customer whose husband was diagnosed with some cognitive impairment. They're not calling it Alzheimer's disease because they don't know what causes it, but he had oral surgery, major oral surgery, and later started deteriorating his brain function. And so there's a definite link between this, and it's not common, but it's not rare either. So what do we want to do? We want to make sure that we're brushing our teeth at least twice a day. We want to make sure that we're flossing, preferably twice a day. We want to make sure we're using some mouthwash to kill the bacteria. I recommend having it before you go to bed. Take a little swish of whatever's going to kill those bad germs, and that way, you kind of protect yourself overnight. And you want to make sure you get to your dentist at least twice a year, and make sure you get your cleanings done, because the better your oral health is, hopefully the better our mental health will be, and we can try to keep everything at bay. There's no reason that we can't do that, because anything that we can do to help prevent us getting Alzheimer's or cognitive impairment, I'm sure we would all want to do that. So that's the Brain Boosters tip of the day. So when we come back after the short commercial break, we'll be meeting our daughter and another guest, and stay tuned.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare-covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice.
Hi, this is Marcia Teal of Caregiver Solutions Info. I'd like to tell you about Senior Home Companions. They provide care in the home for seniors by active seniors. The caregivers are mature men and women who understand the needs of seniors. Caregivers are individually matched to each client, creating a bond and a high level of comfort. A nurse registry, Senior Home Companions have been assisting seniors in Palm Beach County for 17 years. For a complimentary assessment, call Gloria at 561-347-6676 to see how a Senior Home Companion can help you.
You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, welcome back to Caregiver Solutions Info. I want to welcome here in our studio with me today, Lori. Hi, Lori.
Hi, Marcia. Thanks for having me today.
You're welcome. Lori is a family caregiver. Her mom, she's a caregiver for her mom, and she's a family unpaid caregiver. And we also have with us Dr. Jamie Broderick. Hi, Dr. Broderick.
Hi, how
We're
are
going to
you?
call her Dr. Jamie from now on. That's what she likes.
easier.
Dr. Jamie is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's been practicing for a long time, especially with families dealing with issues related to Alzheimer's and dementia. And she has her own private practice, and prior to that, she actually worked for the Alzheimer's Association, Southeast Florida chapter, and she also is a professor at one of the local colleges.
Yes.
So thank you for coming with today, too.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So the reason we're all here today is because I happened to talk to Lori, and Lori was telling me her story about Mom. And the story just got crazier and crazier, right? It's
Right,
crazy.
absolutely. Yeah.
And you know, but I thought to myself, this is what happens sometimes when caregivers are now in the throes of dealing with a family member that has Alzheimer's, and it's not the fact that Mom has it, it's what happened before she was diagnosed. And we're going to tell her story, we're going to let Lori tell her story. And then afterwards, we'll have Dr. Jamie give her input from her side of why this might be happening. So, Lori.
Okay, well.
So let me ask you a couple questions about Mom.
Sure.
Mom is in her 80s, right?
Yes, she is.
Okay, and she doesn't live with you.
No, she does not. She lives on her own.
Okay, but you live in the same town.
I
more or
just
less.
recently moved a little bit closer to her, but yes, I've lived in Palm Beach for the last 15 years.
Okay, so you're close enough to keep an eye on Mom
Yes, I am.
and see if she needs anything, because Mom is alone as far as she's not married.
No, she's not. She was married twice, and now she's living on her own, but there's definitely a need for some support and help.
Okay, so Mom is in her 80s and things are going along fine. But then, you know, obviously you started noticing some things that were not normal. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Through the years, Mom was doing quite well. She was singing professionally. She was out in the circuit enjoying life. She was married. She was going and out for dinner, enjoying social occasions. And I noticed that there was a difference in her personality. There were some changes that were obvious to me, maybe not to others, but because I'm her daughter, I started to see these changes. So with that being said, I try to encourage her to get some help, maybe through her doctor, and talk to her doctor if there's anything she wanted to share with me or with her physician. And she denied there was nothing wrong with her. So time passed, and I noticed more and more changes. Some of the changes were startling.
Like what?
I'll give you some examples. She had inherited some money, and she was starting to act like a woman like a Boca Society woman, just spending money wildly wherever she was. And
And that wasn't normally her way?
That wasn't normally her
Was
way.
she normally like a little penny pincher and tried to save, or she
I
just
wouldn't
wasn't too flamboyant?
She wasn't too flamboyant. She was, I would say, appropriate with money. She had a certain respect for money.
Okay.
And that respect went out the window, and she started living a lifestyle that I would probably see and visualize on TV with famous stars and people with means.
As far as shopping?
Shopping in all the stores and buying whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted, joining country clubs that were very expensive, buying things that you probably would say you would buy for yourself if you had that kind of money, joining the Boca Hotel, and so on and so forth, but just not having any regard for what her balances were. So she definitely saw her money dwindling, and when it was going down hundreds of thousands of dollars, she had said to me, well, I don't think that I'm going to be able to live where I am, so I'm going to have to move to another location. So she went and bought homes that she couldn't afford, she couldn't sustain. She then went into foreclosure. She lost her home. She ended up living in her car. I did not know where she was.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she lived in her car. She then went into a motel. I tried to get some help for her from a physician, but the physician stated she was okay. I was surprised by that evaluation. She refused to get any other physical or mental analysis or evaluations being done. So I continued to be supportive, but then my husband stepped in. I was a student going to school and for nursing, and then continued in Tennessee at Vanderbilt University. So he was overseeing her care, but it just got worse and worse and worse, to the point where she was unable to function in terms of writing checks, paying her bills, managing a checkbook, all these executive functions that you would hope a person would be able to handle, writing checks, going from different places where she'd have realtors show her properties that she couldn't afford, writing checks that would bounce.
Sure, they're happy, right? They're going to make a sale. They'll take her check. They'll take her money.
Yeah, they certainly did. Recently, she went to a very exclusive luxury building, and she gave them a check for $500 for a rental that would be over $2,300 a month. She had no money in the bank.
So checks are bouncing.
Checks are bouncing, and she basically was starting to also look very different. She was eating, but she was losing a tremendous amount of weight. She must have lost, even though there was always food available for her, she had to go on food stamps or the SNAP program. I, as a daughter, did the best I could, but I was going to school on my own loans and was unable to financially support her. She then, at one point, said that she lost all her money because I took everything she had.
Now she's blaming you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You took my money. You stole from me, right?
I took everything she had, and that I had her money. She was telling my husband the same story. She said, Lori has secret counts all over, and you need to find out what they are so I can have my money and I can go back to the lifestyle that I was living.
And your husband, did he deny that? Did he stick up for you?
You know, he just let her talk because you cannot argue with an Alzheimer's patient.
So you've learned that. Okay. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, but at that point, she wasn't diagnosed. And thankfully for him, he was able to encourage her to go for a checkup with a neurologist and a neuropsychologist. And that's
Great.
when she was diagnosed with primary Alzheimer's disease. Unfortunately, if you speak to her about her memory, she'll deny there's anything wrong and she feels perfectly fine. But again, here was a woman who loved to entertain, have people over, formal dinners, very elegant, always well dressed, always
And now she's totally changed.
and she changed.
Let me
And-
ask you a question. When all this was happening, and I know that she was making poor judgments and she was really changing her personality, in your interactions with her, did you notice any short-term memory loss as far as her memory, that it was beginning to be affected? Maybe she could remember long-term things, but things that happened within the past, week or days.
Well, Marcia, the interesting thing about it was that I noticed a lot of confabulation where she would go ahead and fill in the pieces of a story. And the story had absolutely no meaning or purpose or direction, almost to just because she couldn't remember what it could be, and she needed to make up a story so that she at least was perceived as being able to converse with me. So she would say that that she got a call from someone and the call came through, and that she should stop taking her medications because it's not going to help her leg, even though it was for her memory. And she would fill in whatever she needed to tell a story about with other information. If she remembered, whether she did or not, if it didn't make sense, if it was accurate, nothing made sense.
So you didn't know if any of it was true or some of it was true, and then she was embellishing everything else.
Exactly.
And she wanted to feel like she knew what was going on.
That she had that control.
Yes.
Yes.
So we call that covering up.
Covering up.
She was covering up, okay, for her inadequacies because she didn't want to accept, like you said, what was going on. So that's very interesting. And so when you finally got her to the neurologist and the neuropsychologist, and they did diagnose her with moderate stage, right? How did she accept that news?
She said everyone has Alzheimer's disease, and that I have it, my husband has it, and anyone that she's ever met, everyone has it.
So everyone has it, so she's
there's
normal.
Really no difference, and she's normal. She can live on her own. She can drive a car. She can go and perform on stage still as a professional singer. Life did not change for her one bit. It's just all of us don't know what we're talking about, and we're just kind of creating a difficult situation.
Yeah, we're giving her a hard time for nothing, aren't we?
For no reason at all. And why would we do that to her?
Why,
She's
Lori?
been such a great mom. Why would you do this to me? So, yes, it's been a little bit of a challenge for all of us. I've learned that with my interactions, less is more, and there's no correcting involved in my approach with her. Basically, if she says to me, take me to the bank, I will take her, and I will even follow a direction if she thinks I know it's down that street. I will say, okay, let's try that. And then as she sees that it's not, I'll say, I have an idea. I think it's because we left from a different entrance or exit from your building complex. That's why you're feeling this way. Let's try it this way.
So you're indulging her a little bit to make her not feel embarrassed, upset her.
Right. I want her to realize at times on her own, if she does see the changes, she'll accept them more than by me telling her and making her aware of something that she doesn't want to accept. So that's been my psychology, and she'll say, I don't know why I'm so confused about this. I go to Publix, I go to the bank. Really, she hasn't driven for months, although she wants to.
Is this your first experience directly with someone with Alzheimer's disease?
No, because years ago I worked in an assisted living community, so I was aware of the different changes that I would recognize and see with individuals, the sundowning, the experiences they had with their mood changes, the lability. They were very, very happy one moment and then sad the next, or anxious or frustrated or confused. Or there were moments where they were very, very lucid and they knew exactly what was going on.
Right.
And the one thing that I realized about working with some of these individuals who had any cognitive impairment was the fact that they were very good at long-term memory. That was the last to go. So I would normally work with their interests that they had in the past, whether it be music, play their favorite music, and encourage that because that would help keep their mood happy and well balanced.
Well, you were actually fortunate that you had some experience before you had to deal with your mother's issues because you, unlike many family caregivers, were somewhat prepared for what was coming down the road. And, I'm very impressed with what you knew. And I'm like, how does she know this? Because she either read a lot of books real fast, or someone told her what to
Right.
do and what to expect.
Yeah.
Or now we know that you have some, direct experience.
And
And
my
I
nursing
think,
background, too, has helped a little bit,
right.
too.
And I know that you just graduated from nursing school.
Yes,
Congratulations.
I have. I just completed my nursing degree at Vanderbilt. So I'm
Wonderful.
happy.
And and that's going to help too because you're learning about, these kinds of things. Now I think more and more, they're teaching more about this disease in the colleges and I think that it also is helping. But at least you had some preparation and you knew how to talk to mom and how to not get her upset or how to push her buttons, and
Right.
how to go with the flow a little bit. And I know there was one thing that you told me also that one of your mother's favorite things she liked to buy or one of the things that she loved to have was expensive jewelry.
Yes.
And so she had a lot of expensive jewelry and then all of a sudden it's been disappearing.
Well, in the last few years, she refused to actually unpack her boxes, and I'm not sure what's in the boxes. I'm not sure if she sold jewelry to pay bills at some point in time. She was very secretive. I don't know if she still has it. I don't think it's in a safety deposit box anywhere because there's no bill. I'm not seeing that safety deposit box fee.
Right.
So I'm hoping that she does have some money somewhere in terms of a resource, maybe whether it be jewelry, so that while I look and find placement for her, that she'll be able to utilize some of that money for herself, for her care, whether it be anything that brings her enjoyment, having her hair done, her nails, or whatnot. So,
Right. Now, let me
but-
ask you, do you have the support? You have other family members that are helping you deal with this, or is this something that you're tackling on your own?
Unfortunately, my mom was married twice, and I do have an older brother, but they are not supporting the effort to try to find her help. So I'm doing this on my own at this time with the help of my wonderful husband, who's been very instrumental, helping to support my mom any which way he can while I was in school, as well as when I wasn't available to help her because I was out of town.
The reason I asked is because it's important to realize that, sometimes you're in it, and you are the only one, to
Absolutely.
do it because there's always family dynamics that can be involved. Sometimes families are very cohesive and they're all on the same page. Other times there's a lot of dysfunction in families, and that's probably more the case than not in a lot of times. And so, I want people to know that, if you're doing it alone, it's hard. If you're doing it with support of friends and family, it's hard. Okay.
Yes,
All right. So it's
absolutely.
always going to be hard. And so, you are a perfect example of a daughter who is going through the process with your mom. Thank goodness that you did have some, knowledge and some experience before that. And I know that you're worried now about the future.
Absolutely.
Mom went through, you said, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, a lot of money that
Yes,
she had inherited, and she spent it all, and you don't have anything to show for it.
Right. And even when I tried to encourage her to stay where she was, she had a beautiful coach home that was fully paid for and was very in a beautiful neighborhood that I thought should be a great place for her to stay. She said, no, I need a change and I'm not staying here. And she used some other language that wasn't to be repeated, but she just was very upset about the fact that I would encourage her to stay there. That was another sign. Why wouldn't you stay in a beautiful country coach home, which was absolutely beautifully decorated and something that you own fully. So I was concerned about those changes as well. But I also want to say that getting back to your the focus of what you said was you are in it alone. And even when you do have other family members, not everyone will agree with the course of action. Others will disagree with what you think is right. But there's always one person who will spearhead and lead the direction of where things should go for the right reasons. And it's important to stay strong. It's important to be focused. It's important to do your homework. It's important to reach out to resources like I did when I called Marcia, and I really have to say thank you again from the bottom of my heart for all your help and support and the resources that you provided me with. And
You're
I
welcome.
also want to say that it's important to be able to realize that with your perseverance, you will succeed and you will find the right placement
That's
for
great.
all people.
Great
that need help.
encouraging words. Thank you, Lori.
You're very
And when
welcome.
we're going to come right back from this commercial break, and we're going to see what Dr. Jamie has to say about all of this. So be right back.
Take a pen and jot down this information. Right from the Heart assists families in finding the right living arrangements for their aging parents. Founded in 2012 by Sharon Agate, Senior Lifestyle Consultant, Sharon has counseled seniors and their families for over 20 years in clinical settings and in independent assisted living and memory care communities. Finding the right community can be overwhelming and time-consuming. Right from the Heart takes the stress and worry from you. Sharon will meet with mom or dad and evaluate their needs and lifestyle preferences and create a personalized plan at no cost to you. She will accompany you to visit selected communities and guide you every step of the way so you can be assured you're making a well-informed decision. Call Sharon at 561-374-4696. Sharon's promise to you is in your knowing that her advice will always come right from the heart.
Hi, this is Marcia Teal of CareGiver Solutions Info. I'd like to tell you about Senior Home Companions. They provide care in the home for seniors by active seniors. The caregivers are mature men and women who understand the needs of seniors. Caregivers are individually matched to each client, creating a bond and a high level of comfort. A nurse registry, Senior Home Companions have been assisting seniors in Palm Beach County for 17 years. For a complimentary assessment, call Gloria at 561-347-6676 to see how a Senior Home Companion can help you.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. I want to thank our national sponsor, Arden Court's Memory Care Community. They are a leading expert in the field of Alzheimer's care. So if you are dealing with a situation and you need help, Arden Courts has communities scattered all across the United States, and they will be very happy to take your call, get you connected to the Arden Courts that's closest to you wherever you might live. And one of the things that Arden Courts loves to do is they also love to educate caregivers and help caregivers. So two things Arden Courts is going to provide to you. All you have to do is give them a call. One thing is respite care. Holidays are upon us. There's going to be a lot of shopping and a lot of preparation and cooking and all kinds of things getting ready for the holidays coming up. And if you're a caregiver and you're stressed out and you want a day of respite and you've always wanted to know what it would be like to have a day to yourself, Arden Courts would like to give you a free day of respite. All you have to do is call up their 800 number, tell them that you heard about this on the Caregiver Solutions show, and they will give you all the information you need so that your loved one can come to an Arden Courts, have a fun day, interact, do stimulating activities, socialize with their peers, and you won't have to worry because they'll be in a safe, secure environment. That's one thing. The other thing that Arden Courts would like to give you, this is a book called Brain Matters. It's co-written by Dr. Mark Brody. He is the founder of Brain Matters Research, and he's a leading research in the study of Alzheimer's. And he has written this wonderful book, not only explaining about the brain, what is Alzheimer's, what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia, which we've talked about on the show, about the brain, how it works, what's a healthy brain and what's not a healthy brain. If you're interested in that, Arden Courts would like to give you a complimentary copy of Dr. Brody's book, Brain Matters. All you have to do is call Arden Courts at our 888 number. So it's 888-478-2410. Again, 888-478-2410. And you want to just ask them for a free day of respite or Dr. Brody's book or both, and we'll be happy to get that information out to you. So, back in the studio here now, we have Lori, our family caregiver, daughter of whose mom has Alzheimer's disease, moderate stages we've been talking about. And thank you for sharing, Lori.
Sure, thank you.
And Dr. Jamie Broderick. So now you've heard Lori's story, Dr. Jamie. Let's see what your take is on all of this and how you can give us a little bit of insight into what's going on.
Okay. Well, first, as I was listening to your story, it was very touching and very moving. And I was listening in the beginning for those telltale signs that I know from my experience are all too common. And they're very hard, I think, sometimes for us to acknowledge. We look at these little changes and we see things like personality changes, which you had mentioned. We also see poor decision making. And a lot of times we don't think Alzheimer's or dementia. That's one of the further things from our mind because we look at Alzheimer's and dementia as a memory disorder. And it is. But the brain controls all executive functioning and all functioning really. So a lot of people don't realize, and that's why I'm so glad that you're educating people, because those things, the personality changes and the poor judgment, those are some of the very first signs that caregivers should be on the lookout for, because sometimes that strikes before even the early stage memory loss. So that really struck me when I listened to the
Right,
story.
because it might not be that mom doesn't remember who you are, mom doesn't remember what day it is, mom doesn't remember maybe, that she is supposed to do something. That's not the first sign. And so, like Dr. Jamie said, people can be fooled. I bet your mother
Absolutely.
fools a lot of people because
Oh, yeah.
because of her covering up. She can
Yeah.
fool people.
She can.
Including even a physician you had mentioned gave her a
Yes.
clear bill of health. So that's another thing that struck me, and I wanted to say to anyone listening is if you do have concerns about your loved one, you do need to take them to a neurologist or a neuropsychologist who has experience in treating Alzheimer's and dementia, because they will do a thorough workup. If you had a foot problem, you'd go and see a podiatrist. So it's really, really important to do that.
I'm glad you said that because, a lot of primary care physicians, they're not specialized in this disease or the process of it. Also, they only get to see their patients maybe 10 minutes during an office visit, and they don't really get a chance to spend enough time on a regular basis to see any of those subtle changes. And so, they can ask some simple questions, what's the day, who's the president, those types of things, and maybe they might even do a little mini mental. But you're right, Dr. Jamie, unless there's a full workup, by a qualified neurologist or neuropsychologist, including not just the verbal questioning, on the mini mental exam, but you're talking about, your MRIs, you're talking about the blood test, the whole shebang, right? To get a clear, definitive diagnosis. And I just feel that a visit to a primary care is not going to cut it. Right? You agree with me?
Right. A mini mental takes 15 to 20 minutes, and people can fool them, especially if they have a high education level or intelligence. They may perform well, and it can be misleading. So a thorough workup is usually 3 to 4 hours or longer, and someone who is a good historian should probably go with the person to kind of discuss their concerns.
And make sure that the answers that they're giving to the doctor are the right answers. Because if they're covering up, they can tell the doctor anything that sounds good, and he might believe them.
Absolutely.
Which is probably what happened in your case.
Oh, it certainly did.
In your mom's case, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also, just as I was listening, I think that I heard a lot of, it's, I think, very difficult when you have the best of intentions and you are just trying to do what's in her best interest, but it's not always welcomed or perceived that way. And we take it personally, and it is the disease talking. It isn't them. And it's really hard as the person who loves the person who is going through these issues to really be on the receiving end of the brunt of that. And a lot of primary caregivers experience that, and it is really hard to not take those things personally, and just to kind of be the person who receives that is hard.
I think in your case, we didn't mention it, but I think you said not only did your mother accuse you of stealing her money, didn't she take you to court?
She did. She took me to court, or she had the papers processed, and it was dismissed because there was nothing that verified anything that was done to take anything from her.
Sure, but it actually got to that point.
It got to that point. It cost me $3,000 because I needed to hire an attorney. And then there were other times where she left horrible messages wanting to end my life and hire someone to kill me. So there was horrible things that happened from this.
Yeah. And it's incredibly hurtful, but it's also worrisome because you know that if something isn't done or if there's not an intervention, something even worse can happen, something even more destructive. So I think a lot of times when caregivers experience this, it's hurt and sadness. And that's why, as you mentioned, Marcia, a lot of families really, really are impacted, and it's very disruptive because some people would say, okay, fine, if they don't want my help, then I'm just going to stop. That's the easy thing to do.
Wash my hands of it, right?
But when you really love and care for someone, and with your experience knowing about the disease, you were probably still committed to helping her, but it didn't make it any less difficult to be accused of such awful things. So.
It's very difficult to hear those words, to be accused, to know that you have your best interest at heart in terms of providing good care and good direction, but you know that without that assessment, like you mentioned, Dr. Jamie, there is no way that that person will be able to get that help without being assessed to be able to determine what the root cause is.
Yeah. And, I think when caregivers are met with that, and you have your husband that probably validates you and sees what you're trying to do, even if it's not being recognized, if your mom's not capable of understanding it. So I would just say that to any caregivers out there who experience this as well. I think you just have to kind of know what your intentions are and just know that you're doing it for a reason, even if the other person can't see it.
Yeah. I know that you see private patients, in your office, and so you help them through this process of dealing with this memory loss and all that comes with it. Do you have any words of wisdom or a plan that you give to your caregivers of what they should do, the first thing they should do, or 1, 2, 3 that you could share?
Well, I think there's usually no one size fits all. So I think just some basic tips. The earlier you start planning and intervening, the better, because it is a progressive disease. Things are only going to get worse. They're not going to get better.
They're not going to get better. That's
So
right.
the earlier that you come up with a care plan, because very early in the disease, some, not all patients, but some patients are able to have that insight and they're able to recognize that something is wrong. And that is really that crucial, pivotal time where you can get them involved in the care planning process. But once things progress to a certain level, their ability to recognize their limitations isn't there anymore. And so that's my first, I think, no matter who I'm talking to, I say just today's the day, tomorrow's not the day.
Right. Don't
So,
wait.
Yeah.
You're right, because if it's early on and you can still reason with a person and you can have that conversation with them where they can still hear you and process what you're saying and feel, that it's genuine, that you're there to help them and not to hurt them, because later on they get where there's like, they don't, like you say, they don't recognize, they're in denial themselves, everybody else is the problem, and then it's really difficult to have those conversations or to get, the things that you need done, like legal documents, that I'm not signing this, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so it makes
It's
it
very
really hard. So
It's a
the earlier the
challenge.
better.
Right. The
Yeah.
earlier the better. And then even still, everyone is different, like you said. And so sometimes we have our pride, and it doesn't allow us to admit our limitations or that something is wrong. And sometimes it's a fear response. We're afraid that if other people notice and if we submit ourselves to testing, then we're afraid that our independence will be taken away. So when I'm working with people, I try to kind of calm those fears and educate them about what the disease process is, what it looks like, and prepare caregivers for the things that are likely inevitable and what they can expect in the journey, because it's a marathon.
You're right. And they need to know what's down the road. And it's, one step at a time. It's not going to all, it's overwhelming enough, And so I said, let's take one step at a time. And then we get through this hurdle, and we get through the next hurdle. And, and it's a process. And like you said, it's a journey. And you need all the help you can get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whether that's from friends, whether it's from husbands, family member, whoever it's from. And sometimes people don't know how to help. They want to help, but you need to be specific in asking for help sometimes. And a lot of times our pride won't let us do that. So I think really understanding that this disease, it's very hard for just one person to manage it and to coordinate everything that needs to be done. So take help wherever you can get it is absolutely good advice.
That is very, very good advice. So we're going to take our last commercial break, and when we come back, we'll have our little bit of words of wisdom to end our show with Dr. Jamie, and you don't want to miss getting her information, and so you can see how she can help you too. So we'll be right back.
Take a pen and jot down this information. Right from the Heart assists families in finding the right living arrangements for their aging parents. Founded in 2012 by Sharon Agate, Senior Lifestyle Consultant, Sharon has counseled seniors and their families for over 20 years in clinical settings and in independent assisted living and memory care communities. Finding the right community can be overwhelming and time-consuming. Right from the Heart takes the stress and worry from you. Sharon will meet with mom or dad and evaluate their needs and lifestyle preferences and create a personalized plan at no cost to you. She will accompany you to visit selected communities and guide you every step of the way so you can be assured you're making a well-informed decision. Call Sharon at 561-374-4696. Sharon's promise to you is in your knowing that her advice will always come right from the heart. Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you. Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. Arden Courts is not just a place to live. It's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, we've been talking to Dr. Jamie Broderick, licensed marriage and family therapist, and to Lori, a family caregiver for her mom. And so we've been talking about the early warning signs, getting involved early in your family's problems so that you can get the help that you need. And Dr. Jamie, I wanted to ask you to any other words of wisdom or anything else you'd like to say to Lori?
Yes, one more thing. As you were talking, I was thinking about your story about how you took your mom to a physician and the diagnosis wasn't given and she was just, sent on her way. Yet you knew there was more to the story because you knew
Absolutely.
her better than
Yes,
anyone.
for sure.
And what struck me is that you kept persisting and you were diligent in making sure that no stone was left uncovered. You made sure that you followed up and got a second opinion. And I think that that is a good message for those listening to take, because I think that you become the advocate for the person who can't advocate for themselves.
Absolutely.
And, sometimes you need that support and that encouragement that you're doing the right thing. So ultimately
Thank
the
you.
outcome worked out. And that's so important, is you're the advocate and you need to feel empowered in that role.
And what's interesting to note that we didn't say earlier, Lori has been doing this process from the time it started, and she's still going with it. But it started over 10 years ago, you said.
Yes, it
so
did.
it's it's nothing that is going to just wake you up one day and say, there it is. There's going to be telltale signs, and it's going to be slow moving probably at first, but kudos to you for hanging in there and doing that. And I want to thank you again for being here, sharing your story. I know it's not always
Thank you.
easy to put it out there, but
hard.
I'm sure you've helped a lot of people.
Yes, I have.
And Dr. Jamie, thank you for coming, lending your expertise, validating everything that Lori has said, because, we need to know as caregivers that we're doing the right thing and that we're on the right path. Now, if someone wanted to reach out to you, how would they contact you if they'd like to maybe have an appointment with you or see you in your practice? Can you give us your contact information?
Sure. My phone number is 561-213-9803. And you can reach me, and I have a private practice in Boca, so I am accepting new clients. And if you prefer email, it's Jamie, Jamie, at broderick.com. I'll spell my last name. It's BRODARICK.com.
And tell them the phone number one more time.
Sure, 561-213-9803.
So if you liked what Dr. Jamie had to say, you feel connected to her because she understands what caregivers go through, you can certainly see that she has compassion, she has empathy, she has the knowledge to walk you through. Please give Dr. Jamie a call, and she'll be happy to help you too, I'm sure. So I want to thank you again both for coming today.
Well, thank you for having us.
You're so welcome. And I wanted to let you all know again, call Arden Courts, get your free copy of Brain Matters. It's a great book, co-authored by Dr. Mark Brody, who's one of the leading researchers on Alzheimer's disease. And also, call Arden Courts to let them know that you heard about this on the show. You want to learn more about what Arden Courts can do for you. And you might want to take advantage of the free day of respite. So call the Arden Courts 888 number. So it's 888-478-2410, and tell them that you would like to get your free copy of the book, you'd like some daycare, you'd like to know about anything that is related to the disease that we're talking about, memory loss, because Arden Courts is a wonderful provider of memory care all across the United States, and of course they're my favorite. So I hope that you join us next week. We'll be here, same time, same place. And in the meantime, don't forget, give somebody a hug. Have a good evening. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teal. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions. The opinions